Right now, I am zooming in to see my father's grandmother, Amelia Giroir.
Right. Okay.
Let me see if I can go over there and get it. Yeah, I got it. There it is. I can see it. Okay. Let me adjust it. Now, that's my great-grandmother, Amelia Giroir. And who was she married to, Daddy?
She was married to a man, to my grandfather, Eli Bro.
Okay.
My grandfather's wife.
Okay.
Amelia Giroir. She was married to Eli Bro, which is my grandfather.
Okay.
And I also have some pictures of my grandmother, my father's mother, Amelia Giroir, family. I have a picture of her brother and his family. These are my cousins, my great uncle, and his children. And
that's Franken, ain't it, Daddy?
yes,
Peter
Giroir.
Oh, that's Peter Giroir.
Peter Giroir.
When he was younger.
Yes, when he was younger. My great uncle is my grandmother's brother.
That was his mother, and then his three daughters, or
I think it was his mother, which is my great grandmother, and his daughters was on the also his daughters.
Okay.
Right, his family at the time.
And the lady that's sitting in the middle was that Indian little girl.
Yes, she was a lady that was possibly an Indian girl. That was his mother, I think. His mother, which would be our great grandmother.
Okay.
And I also have a photo of her, of the great grandmother with the two granddaughters. With the two granddaughters.
And the story of her, Daddy, what had happened was to her, what they said.
Well, the story with her, she was, I don't know what time, I can't remember the time that she was living, but I was too young, but I can remember to say, well, she had passed away at a certain age back in the early 1900 or so. And I can't quite remember that, but I kind of heard my daddy's sisters and them used to talk about them, but it was all my family on my great uncle's side.
And she was also, when she was a little girl, she was found on the prairie.
I think she was found on the prairie by some people that brought her in and raised her from a child, and then from that on, I can remember that was said about her, about where she was when she was a child that was adopted child of some sort.
Oh yeah, so she was married into the family.
She was married into the family. She was married into the family. Her husband, I remember the name of the great grandfather, which is my grandmother, and her brother Peter Giroir. His name was Norbert Giroir.
Norbert Giroir.
Norbert Giroir.
Now this is going way back.
Yes, it's going way back. It was my great grandfather.
Yes.
Norbert Giroir, and this is his family here. This is his wife here, the lady that was adopted by some people from a childhood and married into the Giroir family, and also. I have a picture of some other people that I kind of remember on the family history that I can remember. Now, I don't know, this is a photo of a man speaking. His name, I think, if I can remember, his name was Joseph Broussard, a man that called Joseph Broussard. And I believe he's one of the great descendants from Liverpool, England, or from Nova Scotia, Canada, that I can remember. His name was called Broussard.
Yep.
Broussard means Broussard is going in French. Broussard is on French. Aller, it means going in French. And then I also understand that he's one of the great descendants, maybe my 13th, 14th great grandfather.
Yes.
And he was a traveling man that was fought against the British. He told me that he fought against the British with the Indian. I don't know if he was part Indian or what. I'm not very sure of that. But this was one of the great ancestors. And it brings it down back to a man called Adolphe Broussard, which is my grandfather. And these are the pictures of them, of the family, of the family history. And I also understood he brought people back in from what they call exile into the United States. and traveled with people that brought people in from the exile. And I think this group of people here was the people that was involved with this man called Broussard. John Broussard had brought these people in from Nova Scotia, Canada, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. These are the people that was brought back from exile and from the Nova Scotia, Canada.
And some of the research, I'm just going to add to my daddy's story about Joseph Beausoleil here. They call him the Defiant One because they could not take him down. Nobody could do nothing to stop Beausoleil. Beausoleil was so mad at those British, and he got together with the Miramichi Indian, and those Indians were savages because my father have a picture of his 18th great grandfather, and he gonna tell you about him, and then I can continue the story about what Beausoleil had to do with those Miramichi Indians when he was fighting against the British because they were defiant because they didn't like what the British did, and they had built them a fort in Nova Scotia, Canada. And Beausoleil was wealthy. He had 3 ships, and he was beating the British, and the British had captured him. And when the British had captured him and the Miramichi Indian, they were upset with the Miramichi Indian because the Miramichi Indian was burning the British at the stake. And they were eating them also. Because, you know, that was what they did. And they were so upset with the Miramichi Indian, and that whenever they had captured Beausoleil and kept him in prison, and he left with those 200 Acadians that settled down here in Louisiana. But this man right here, him remember too, that's my daddy, 18th great grandfather. He's going to tell you a little bit about him.
Right, okay. What I know, I can know about him that he was a Miramichi Indian, and he was a man that did a lot of things for the people, that he taught people how to survive off the land and so forth. And that was a great thing at the time of the days that they were coming up in the life and so forth.
In the early beginning of the time of people, explorers.
Explorers, early time as explorers of people that came into the United States. But I'm very proud to know that.
That's right. And then how old was he on that picture, Daddy? Remember I told you?
About close to 100 years.
And he still looked good.
He still looked nice for his age.
Yes, he did. Nice. That's it. Yeah, still looked nice gentleman.
I like the outfit he's wearing. It was kind of a outfit that reminds you of the 1600s, I presume. It was like,
that's the chief.
A chief.
He was a chief.
Indian chief, yes. I guess they wore that.
And the reason why I was led into that part about Beausoleil, Joseph Broussard, that my father showed you, is because they respected Joseph. That's why the Indian got with him, because he was part Indian, and plus because his grandfather at one time was the chief of the Indian tribe. The grandfather was the chief. Yes, and they never forgot that.
Right, the tribe. There's one other lady that I probably didn't mention about. One of my grandfather, Adolphe Broussard. I think this is his mother. Her name is Florence Dowan.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my great grandmother on his side. And she was a lady from the born and raised in the New Iberia, Louisiana. This is my great grandmother. Her name was Florence Dowan. My grandfather's mother. I have a picture of that also. I just had forgot to show it earlier.
Oh yeah. But what they was mentioning about your Uncle Adam, well, some people was calling him Walter Broussard, but my father said he do remember him being named Adam.
Well, my grandfather, there were 3 brothers that I knew of. My grandfather, Adolphe Broussard. He's had another brother. His name was Albert Broussard, and then this other brother here was named Adam Broussard. Right. They were brothers, all brothers together back in the days.
Maybe his middle name was Walter.
Maybe his middle name was possible Walter, but I always knew him as Uncle Adam. Uncle Adam, and he was a very nice man that I knew. When I was a young boy, I was about 4 or 5 years old. I can remember him real good, and I think on this picture here, I do recognize him. Yes, he looked at sort of just like this man here. So
kind of good complexion with that kind of hair.
Right, exactly. Uncle Adam. He was a very nice man. Was one of the great uncles about
Yes,
it.
and then they had found some information out about him, Daddy.
Right, it had found some Cuban. It's sort of like Cuban information,
Yes.
like probably mixed with Cuban and so
there you
forth.
go. Yeah.
And that's more than what I would know about him. But I
Yep.
do remember the face because it's looked exactly
what you remember.
Like I can remember as a child. It's my great uncle, Uncle Adam Broussard.
Daddy, now tell us a little story about those Broussard men, how wealthy they was, and the one used to carry the anti-shake case.
Let's see. Oh yes, I had one of my great uncles, also one of the brothers of Uncle Adam. His name was Uncle Albert. He was Uncle Albert was a very.
It was Albert.
Albert.
That was his brother. Adam's brother.
Adam. Yeah, Uncle Albert was a man well respected that I can remember of him, and I don't have a picture of him at the time, but
yes, it'll come up.
I do remember that he was he was kind of a well-dressed man, dressed groom in a nice suit at all times, stayed dressed up, and he used to carry a suitcase like it was like a carrying bag or some type of thing. So I was as a child, I was interested to know what he was carrying in there, but he wouldn't tell you because in them days people that keep things sort of secret. So as I got older in life, I kind of remember, and I spoke to one of my Uncle Oscar Loyan, my great uncle, and he mentioned something about it. So I asked him one day. I said, Uncle. I said, what is Uncle Albert is carrying in the briefcase? Oh, he said money. Oh, but in them days, people wouldn't bother you about try to rob you or suspect something of you. But he was a very wealthy man that I know of because he always was in the restaurant business and the saloon business, and he had a lot of cafes and so forth. He liked to be in that type of business that I can remember.
And he didn't care for a vehicle.
And he didn't care. He always a man that would walk all the time. Walk from his house where he lived down to the area where his cafe and his saloon was at the time in the days there. But he was a very, very nice man. Always friendly. Always with a smile. And then when I passed by, he would wave at me and say hi, hi nephew or whatever, and so forth. And he would keep going on by his business.
And how old you was, Daddy?
I imagine Uncle Albert in that time. Uncle Albert must have been in his late 60s or 70s. I would say early 70s.
And you was a little boy?
I was a little boy then. Yeah, maybe late 60s or early 70s. I can remember that Uncle Albert was about that age, but it was a fine-looking man. You know, always stayed nice, dressed up and groomed, and all the time.
Because you was a little boy. Because during that time, your family, Papa and Mama, here's a picture.
Right.
Y'all was living there.
Right. No, at the time we were living in New Iberia. When I came up, this is my break place, New Iberia, Louisiana. And I was born and raised in New Iberia, Louisiana. But this is a picture of my father and mother and my sisters. They were all raised up. Some of them was born in the New Iberia area, but they mostly was raised up in the Broussard area. And but my break place is New Iberia originally. I was born and raised in New Iberia in my childhood, and then when I became a teenager, then my family moved away from New Iberia back in the late 50s.
Yes.
In 1957, I can remember that. As far as I can know, in the 50s. Okay. Good. Let's see what else. All right, I got all the pictures. That's it.
Pretty much. This ain't Barbara when she was younger.
Oh, this is one of my pictures of one of my sister. I've been keeping that in the family for a very long time. I guess she was a very young girl at the time when she took this picture here. She is my oldest sister, and I'm the oldest brother. And she was also born and raised in the New Iberia, Louisiana. Also.
She died at a young age.
She died at a young age, in her late 40s, I presume. In her late 40s, she died at a young age.
Yes. But
so,
she was a good person.
Good person.
Barbara.
Oh yeah. Barbara, one of my my sisters, and they always. No, I'd get along with all the sisters.
Yes.
You know, they always was nice to me.
Who's that two ladies standing right there by that car, Dad?
This two ladies here is distant cousins. I think one of them is a bro, and the other one is a Joar. And they are my distant cousin. These young ladies there were taken way back. I presume in the early early 1940s, I would say.
Oh, wow. Look at that old car.
1940s or the early 1950s.
You know what kind of car they was standing behind?
I think it was an old-time car. It was kind of like an old Plymouth.
Oh, boy.
Plymouth back in the days. They had
Plymouth.
those type of cars. I think I can remember Plymouth and so forth. Yeah, back in the days.
That's
they
old
were real
time.
nice. Some of the Kent people that on the Broussard. Yes, indeed. So I hope everyone enjoys seeing this on video and.
But that's the memory that he had pretty much of his family.
Right.
And we know that of most of them all that they still kind of talk about is Eli and Albert Bro.
Albert Bro, which is
because they estate is still remaining.
Yeah.
And then they had the thing saying that Eli Bro had a lot of property.
Right, he did at one time. My grandfather had a lot of land. He was a farmer.
You know how much property he had one time?
At the time, I think my grandfather, I can remember back when I used to when they used to talk about it. I think he was having like over 300 acres of land at one time.
Wow.
And he purchased land. What happened, my grandfather, I heard talk about this here from him, that he had bought land back in the days like for $2-3 an acre of land at the time. And he also had, what he did, he also had bought some of his sisters and brothers' share. So that's why he wind up with more land in the family than the rest of the family of the brothers and sisters. I can remember.
Now, where did some of his brothers go to? That
Okay,
they
one of
split
the
up?
brothers, I think one of the brothers moved to Texas. His name was Uncle Delay Bro. He was living in Liberty, Texas. He had a hog ranch. That's what he went to doing, raising livestock. Hog ranch in Liberty, Texas. That's what he was pursuing from, I guess.
So I guess that some of the bros are in Liberty, Texas.
Right, and we have a lot of family of the Bros in Liberty, Texas, and also in
what happened to his
Liberty,
other brother?
Texas,
Okay.
and Dallas, also around the Dallas, Texas, because I found out they had one of the members of the family went down to the Dallas Fort Worth area and found some pictures of my great grandfather, Albert Bro, and his wife, Elizabeth Aubrey. It was his wife, Elizabeth Aubrey, that he found some pictures in Dallas, Texas. So imagine we should have still some people living around the Dallas area or some part of Texas. I don't know if it's Liberty, Texas. They may have some. I also had some great uncles would move away from the this Broussard area back in the early days.
And where did they head to, Daddy? On the trail?
One of a great uncle I can remember, my great grandfather's brother. His name was Claville Bro.
Claville Bro.
And he left, him and his family, I think on the wagon train back in the days. He moved to Oklahoma and never returned.
Oh.
And I heard about that story about the family.
Did that have a little something to do with the secession when they came back and then your other uncle bought out everybody's stuff?
Right, I'm pretty sure it might have did something with the secession of one of the great uncles bought the other uncles out or something like that.
Eli did that.
Eli Bro did that. My grandfather did bought the land from the share of the sisters and brothers. And also that he did had a share from his daddy, also Albert Bro, but he went on and bought the other family share out when he was becoming up as a young boy.
Yes.
And I kind of heard or remember he was 21 years old when he was doing this in the days, and I think he had at 21 years old, I think he had owned 100 acres of land at the time. And then he started buying land afterwards, doing it with the family and with other people and so forth.
And the reason why he was buying the land because he was using it to sugar cane.
He was using it for farming land. Yeah, he did a lot of farming. He always did farm work. And,
with the story, Daddy, of Grandpa, and then he was the sugar cane farmer. He was pretty good, and then he would buy those Kentucky mules.
Yeah, right. He was, my grandfather, I remember him. That he purchased mules, but he had purchased mules from Kentucky. We called it Kentucky mules, which was cost, he said at the time, and that was a lot of money back in the days because a pair of Kentucky mules was cost $700 a pair at the time. Wow. Yes, it was.
Why did he purchase Kentucky mules?
They were stronger? They were stronger, better mules to work the farm with and so forth. And so forth. And after that, after the mules that he had over the years, then he came in the late 50s, or in the mid to late 50s and bought tractors at the time. He owned a Palmall tractor and Case tractors and so forth to farm the land.
What about Grandpa Eli going to the bank?
Oh, yes. Well, boy, yeah, my grandfather, he was a conservative man, I guess. He was saving, he had a saving account at one of the banks, I think, in Lafayette, Louisiana, one of the big banks called the Guarantee Bank at the time.
Yeah.
And he would walk in there and he would say, "How you doing today, Mr. Bro?" And he'd say, "Everything is fine. You here to borrow some money?" He said, "No, not really. I'm just going to borrow against my money." He used to say that all the time.
And everybody in the bank, when he walked in, what would they do, Daddy?
Yeah, they would all, smile and say, "How you doing, Mr. Eli?"
And stand up.
And stand up. What can we do for you today?
Oh, yeah, because he was wealthy, huh?
Oh, well, he was kind of a conservative man. I'd say pretty conservative, wealthy. Well, wealthy-wise in property.
I see.
And conservative-wise, too, also. I guess he farmed the land, and he might have did, things that he might have done, say trade things off, maybe borrow. The amount of land that he had, I'm betting he could have borrowed against the land,
of course,
and pay the loan back. With the crop sharing.
Absolutely, because he was a big time sugarcane farmer.
Yeah,
wasn't
big
he?
time. I remember he was a big time sugarcane farmer at one time, and he used to haul the sugarcane. I kind of remember the mill that he used to haul the sugarcane at. It was called the Bio or the Bellard Sugar Mill. It was in the Broussard area many years ago, but now it's all been taken away, tore down, and it's now the places that have all new highways, stores, and everything is all grown up in that part of Broussard.
Yes.
During the time that he was doing this particular cropping, sugarcane, the road was a gravel road at the time. That it's like a trail they used to follow to go to the Broussard area and to haul the sugarcane at the Bio's mill in Broussard, Louisiana.
Yes.
And many years.
And who would help him work his land, Daddy?
Well, he had his my daddy, his son.
And what about the lady that they had hired? He did have some servants.
Yeah, he had some servants. He had a lady. Her name was Miss. I could pronounce her name. It's like was the French name. Would call her Miss Madame Jean. Her name was. Her husband and her used to work and live on the property of my grandfather's estate at the time.
Yes. And they had one other man that came in that time, but your grandmother helped them.
They had a man that I can understand. My grandmother remember that they had a man was traveling to the countryside, I guess, and he was looking for a place to stay or looking for a job or something, and he was traveling by horseback, and my grandmother Amelia Joa saw him out there on the road and stopped and asked him where he was headed. He was like a drifter. He was a drifter, man that's just traveling from town to town and country, and she asked him if he wanted a job and give him a place to stay and give him food to eat. And if he wanted to work on the farm. And he did work. I don't know how long he worked on the farm, but he probably worked a few years before he left the farm and so forth.
Oh, yeah.
That's a long time back.
And so back in the day, where would the help homes be located at, Daddy? Because Eli Bro estate is still there.
Yeah, the estate is still there. Part of his estate is still there on the Bayou Chartier Road.
Now, where would the house located at? And then in the back, you say the servant's house was?
Yeah, the house was located up front next to the gravel road, and the servant's house was located in the back of the homestead. And they also had houses in the he had houses on the south side of the property, and they had a homestead there, but I don't remember the people that was living there at the time, because it was too many years that I can remember that. There was two homesteads that he had on the property, and people that lived there on the property do the crop sharing, whatever.
Yeah, that's it.
And that's it.
The crop sharing. And then the house, as the time went by and the family started getting their inheritance, what did they do to the house, Daddy?
Okay, the house was at the my grandfather, I would call it a plantation house.
Yes, it was.
It was at the time. that I can remember. And over the years, that when after he passed away, well, he divided his land amongst the his children, and some of the children kept part of the land, some sold. And what they did with the old house, they had two daughters, two of my aunts that divided the homestead, and they broke it and made it two houses, but they kept the front of the house, the original, like the 1800s. And like it was built, because it was built by my great grandfather Albert Brewer in 1872. And
Albert built that house,
yeah,
huh?
my great grandfather built the house in 1872, and that house was there, and it still stands there today.
Yes, it does.
Right.
Right on the Bayou Turtle Road.
Bayou Turtle Road, they call that.
And they have a legend of that property, don't they, Daddy?
Some part of the legend of the property.
You know, talking about dealing with the oil.
Yeah, they did have a lot of oil there around that particular area there.
And it's still pumping, I bet you.
No, they're still producing oil in that particular area. But I can remember there was an explosion that happened with a oil company called Davison Oil Company, and wasn't aware. I was not living there at the time. I was already married, and my children was coming up at the time, and I gotten a call from an oil company, a man by the name of Jeffrey. He was representing an oil company called Davison Oil Company, and he called me up and spoke to me and said, "Mr. Bro, I need you to sign a lease with the Davison Oil Company." I said, "A lease?" And that sort of shocked me at the time, because I thought maybe that we knew at the time our people had sold the land, but we still had an interest of a road that, on the Bayou Turtle Road, because my grandfather had land on both sides of the road, and we still had an interest in the oil on the road. And from there, we never heard anything else from that. It's been many years ago.
Yes, yes, because they had an explosion.
Explosion, yeah, the explosion.
Besides that, they would have never contacted y'all.
Right, exactly. That's how they contact me, through the explosion and so forth. And then they asked me to sign a lease with the oil company, which I did. And they started to send a few royalty checks, but it was very, very small amount of money they were sending at the time. And I think what happened, they had what they call an antitrust litigation went on into that particular procedure of that explosion of the well, because it was like more than one oil company was involved in the explosion. That when the time it happened in the 1980s, and from there they went to federal court, and I don't know what happened after the federal court. They came up with some type of decision, whatever, of paying the rightful owners. Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Exactly what happened.
So we hope everybody like your video.
Well, I hope everybody likes it and so forth, and I pass it on to the family and to the grandchildren, the great grandchildren, and to the next centuries. Thank you all very much.
Okay.